How's it going, everybody? I'm Andrew Robson. You are watching RAKUYO's Deciduous Bonsai channel. Today we're going to work on this birch. Now, if you saw our last video about 3 tips for growing birch bonsai, I shared this young tree that I've been growing from seedlings that I collected from my teacher Michael Hagedorn's garden. And when I showed this on the video, I immediately noticed during the editing and once it was live on YouTube, some major structural improvements and maybe a front change that we can make to really enhance this bonsai's development moving forward. So we're going to make those changes today. Join us for the journey and come along for the ride. Now, the first thing that we need to do is identify a front. Now, I like to mark a front with a little piece of wire that is bent in a U shape. This is a handy little trick so that you can have a good frame of reference moving forward when you put it back out on the bench or when you repot it next time, so that you put it at the proper angle. So let's take a look at where this front might be. I'm going to give the tree a 360-degree spin so that we can get a really nice clear image with a nice clean background here. So let's start spinning this tree. Now, the first thing that you want to look at is the tree in 2D versus 3D, because when the tree is in 3D, you might miss something that you see when you look at it in 2D. Now, all of you watching this video on YouTube are obviously watching this in 2D. You're not here in person with me while I'm doing this filming. But the benefit of seeing this in 2D is you're really picking up on, what the camera sees, what we would see if we saw this photographed in a book or something. And playing with dimension, going from 2D to 3D, can really help give us a realistic sense of what is our eye seeing? What can we pick up in 2D that we're missing in 3D? Playing with that dimension really gives us a nice, clear representation of what that bonsai actually looks like. Now, after spinning this around and going back and me watching the video that you all got to see, I really kind of landed on this as where I like the front. The benefit of this for me is that I have nice interplay between the main trunk and the secondary trunk, and that's really what we want to start with, especially when we have a multi-trunk plant like this clump-style Kabudachi birch group. With this birch group, what we want to do is have our main lines be the priority. Those main lines, which are the primary focus, if we can fix those, then it's a lot easier to adjust some more smaller micro lines. And so I think this is a nice arrangement for having these 2 main lines have a nice start for us. So there are some things that might be wrong with this front. You might notice that this trunk and this trunk here actually don't play well from this angle. And when we're choosing a front, we have to look at the overall gestalt. We have to look at the overall variety of components that might lead us to a decision. With this tree, like I said, we want to prioritize these main lines, because these smaller lines, if these 2 trunks are crossing down here, it will be a lot easier to go back and fix that later. And so we're going to start with these 2 main trunks. We're going to get those dialed in. This looks best from our 360-degree spin. Now, another thing or another improvement that I might want to make is to maybe bring these a little bit closer. Maybe take this one and just tie these 2 together so they don't feel so disjointed and disconnected, but to just tie these in just a little bit together. So we're going to put a Guywire on. We're going to bring these a little bit closer together, and then we'll start, descending in our priority list and fixing some of these other little things that might need to move to make the rest of the bonsai look good. Now, I'm going to put a Guywire on so that we can bring this secondary trunk a little bit closer to the main trunk. So when we use a Guywire, I do a very simple wire here at RAKUYO. What we do is we use either a very small size copper or aluminum. Here I have copper gauge 20. Which is very inexpensive. And then I'm going to take 2 pieces of window screening. I get these at Ace Hardware. I might be butchering the name, but there's this nice little rubber tubing with a hole going through it. And this is just a nice protective cushion so that that wire doesn't pull in and damage the bark of the tree. So I'm gonna now take this wire, I'm gonna cut a length to the approximate size. I don't mind wasting just a little bit. I'd rather have a piece that is gonna work for me, so I get a good size. And the other thing we need to keep in mind is we need to anchor this to a point that is going to be quite strong. And so we don't anchor this to something weak like a rotten stub. You know, birch are known for being kind of quick to decay. So we don't want to anchor this to something that's gonna rot away. We want to anchor it to something that's going to be quite strong. So we'll probably go around a thicker portion of the trunk, something kind of the size of my thumb or thereabouts. So I'm going to take my wire, I'm going to put on this rubber tubing, I'm going to pull it through. Now when you go to anchor this, we need an anchor point that's going to be about 2 or 3 wraps. So I literally just take this wire, I kind of bring it down to where it's kind of eventually going to hang out and live. I am then going to take this and wrap it around about 2 or 3 times. About 2 or 3 times is enough for it to really kind of hold position. So then we'll take this, we'll kind of straighten up our wire just a little bit, get it to where we're going to be able to create a nice anchor point down here. I'm going to take my second piece of tubing, I'm going to put it on this nice wire, and then again this is going to really allow me to pull these two just a little bit closer together to incorporate them into a better design. So let's take a look at what that might look like. Something about there is a start. You don't have to do this perfectly the first time, you can make some adjustments. But we get it kind of 90% close and see how happy we are. So I'm going to drop this in somewhere right around here. Again, we're going to take this wire and we are going to wrap it on 2 or 3 times. And that's really enough to hold this together and to anchor this up. And then any excess we can always give a little trim to. So this is what they look like a little bit closer together. So I just took a little break. I stepped back and I really kind of took in this new placement between these two trunks. And so now I want to tackle the next thing that really bothers me, that is jarring, and that's this little trunk right here. Now I would love to take this and put a guy wire or wire on it to bend it down so that this isn't crossing and messing with this trunk that's behind it. So we're going to take another guy wire or a wire possibly, and we're just going to get this out of the way so that we create a better composition between all of the main trunks that we have in this bonsai. Now in order to do this, I'm going to have to create an anchor point. And one of the best ways to do this when you don't have a good anchor point available is to go up through a drainage hole. So I have a couple materials here. I have a size 3 aluminum wire. I have a little block to help hold the tree up while I make drive that wire through the drainage hole and make that point. And then I have a wire cutter so that I can trim the wire, use it to support it and twist it and to cut a point on it. And that's probably the first point that you should know, is that you can drive a wire into soil a little bit easier when you have a point to help you. So we're going to prop this up, make sure it's nice and safe on here before I just let it have at it. And I'm going to find a drainage hole in the general vicinity of where I need to move this. Now where that anchor point is pretty important, because if it's in the wrong place, I'm going to pull the tree in the wrong direction. So I probably want that anchor point not too far forwards, because that's not really going to get me where I need it. I probably need to have it coming backwards. So we're going to take our scissors or our wire cutter. I'm going to cut a nice sharp kind of pointy point on here. I'm going to drive it into a drainage hole up through the soil, and this is going to give us a really nice anchor. Then this is going to come at a 90-degree angle, another 90-degree angle, and then I have this wire sticking up. So I'm going to take this off the block now. I have this sticking up. I'm going to fold this down. I'm going to use this tool to help support these together, and then I'm going to twist a few times. 1, 2, 3 twists. That's that magic 3 number for kind of anchoring wire. And then I'm going to trim any excess that I have just to get that out of the way. Now, this is a really strong anchor point and something that we can use so that we don't have to anchor it somewhere else. So I'm going to go back, I'm going to get my size 20 wire, and we're going to bend this down. All right, so I have my size 20 wire again. I have a small piece of that tubing so that I can protect my branch. I'm going to come over here. I'm going to get that wire set up. So let's get a piece that's going to be long enough for us, and then we're going to bring this down. Don't need a lot for this one. So, again, we're going to put this tubing on the wire so that we can protect the branch so that we don't allow that to cut in. I'm going to wrap 1, 2, 3 times. I'm going to now take this and bring it through that anchor point that we created, and then I'm going to kind of step back and see where we need this to be. And I think this is actually going to be a super short one. So something like that is where we want it. So just a little tiny clip. Now we'll step back, we'll look and see, did that make a nice aesthetic difference? And I think that really helped clean up some lines that we have on this tree. All right, now the next step is to do a little wiring. Now I have this small kind of part branch, part trunk going on down here that I think I'd like to make some adjustments with. I think maybe bringing it upwards would help to fill in some space and give us a little bit better depth, and also maybe match some of the character and movement that the other trunks have. So I'm just going to take a piece of wire so we can do some of that bending. Now, whenever we're putting a piece of wire on, it's always nice to find an opportunity, see is there something that I compare it to, not just so that I can get a good anchor, but so I can also take that opportunity of wrapping the wire on to fix another branch. And I think we have a branch here that might benefit with a little bit of manipulation. So I'm going to get a nice big wire that's good for both of these branches, and we will make some adjustments. Now, here at RAKUYO, I use aluminum wire that is maybe strikingly aluminum colored. And that is not the normal bonsai practice. Most people use this weird black or brown aluminum wire. And you know, for me, that makes absolutely no sense whatsoever. The intent of some of that wire is that it kind of camouflages itself and that it kind of disappears when we put it on the tree. But for me, that makes no sense because I want to be able to see exactly where that wire is. So come the time that it bites in, I can immediately identify its location and remove it. I also like just the aesthetics of this beautiful silver coloration. And so for me, I don't use any of that black or brown aluminum wire because you can't see it. And because aluminum wire is a temporary thing, this is a wire that's going to stay on this tree for probably all throughout the dormant period, but once it starts growing again, this wire is going to be removed in 4 to 6 weeks. So I want the aesthetic of something bright and attention grabbing because that's going to really allow me to identify where that wire is and get it off in a timely fashion. So we're just going to bring this trunk upwards and just help us have a little bit more depth. Now this other branch that I wired, we're going to take the opportunity to manipulate this down a little bit so that we can create a better feeling here. So we had a nice pairing, so that's why we went ahead and did this wire. All right. Now, this is really starting to come along. You can see with just a few minor tweaks, we've already made some great adjustments to this tree's core structure. And really just doing a few careful, calculated adjustments can make a huge impact on the overall aesthetic of a bonsai. So I'm going to make a few more adjustments with some wires here and there on this tree so that we can get a few more things dialed in. These are just kind of micro little adjustments that stick out to me, but we're going to put on a little bit more wire and then do a final trim before we do this grand reveal of what it looked like before to what it looks like now. All right, so we've made a few more of those small micro edits. We threw on a wire here and there. We put a Guywire here and there. We did some pruning here and there. And now I am much more happy with how this bonsai is coming along. And that's something that I really want all of you to do, not just what we do here at RAKUYO, but what you can do with your deciduous bonsai is, if you see something that bugs you, take the time to go back and fix it. When I watched that last Birch video that I put out on the channel, I saw this tree and I was kind of disgusted with how it was looking in that video, and it really inspired me to go back, bring the tree back into the studio and make some of these big changes. Now, the thing you have to know about making changes on a pre-bonsai is this is a pre-bonsai. It's a young tree. This is a tree that's very much in development. It's only, 10% along its bonsai journey. And so with these young bonsai, you don't have to do everything today, but make sure that you really push the tree in a positive direction. And that's what we did today. We took something that, I thought was not very pleasing, and we really pushed it in a more positive direction. And I couldn't be happier with how it looks now compared to that last video when we did that 360-degree spin. So take the time on your trees, your lovely deciduous bonsai. Take the time to make some structural improvements. Don't let something stay if it really bugs you. That's a good sign that if it's bugging you, if it's bothering you, that you should really bring it in and figure out a way to change it. And as you can see, I didn't wrap 300 pieces of wire on here. I used just a few simple guy wires, a few simple wrapped wires, and scissors to make, some major improvements on this bonsai. Plus, just changing a front and choosing a front can be really critical to begin with. So with your deciduous bonsai, you can make a lot of these nice simple changes too. If you enjoyed this video, hit like at the bottom of your screen. Thanks for tuning into RAKUYO's Deciduous Bonsai channel. We hope you subscribe so we can keep you up to date with all of this deciduous love moving forward. Have a great rest of your day. Take your trees in and do some fun work on them.